Alright, so like I mentioned earlier, this code, a lot of it is what we already went over last time when I first introduced the algorithmic trading bot. But for now, let's just go over exactly what all this code is and how we can expand on that to implement the ROC and Heikin Ashi trading. Now the first thing, once again, that you need is your API and API secret from the Binance clients. And then first you need to declare this client, which just allows you to connect to the Binance client and make sure that if you're in the US, make sure you have the TLD US. Now this first section here is where we have our price updater class. So this allows us to connect to the Binance client and gets the prices for whichever asset that we want to trade. And this last line down here, which is the time.sleep, just says how much time we want in between every time that we check the Binance client. And once again, we're not using WebSockets in this code just because the Python Anywhere, which is what I recommend you run the trading bots on, doesn't actually allow you to use WebSockets. So we'll just use this for now. Now this next section here is actually where we have all of our different indicators that we can code out right here, which is called class algorithms. And as you can see here, what we went over last time was how you can implement MACD and the RSI trading strategy in this algorithmic trading bot. So if you're more interested in that as well, make sure to check out the video in my description below. And after that, we have the check class, which just allow us to get the indicators from the algorithms class and check whether it actually gives us a buy signal or a sell signal, as you can see here and here. And finally, this last section is our actual algorithmic bot and how we can actually implement it. So first, once again, we connect to the Binance client. We have the interval, which is the 1 minute interval, and then the K lines, which is all the different candlesticks that we need to get, and then the closing prices. And then we also need to check which indicators that we want to be checking. So if we have a MACD and RSI trading strategy, then we need to check those. And finally, then we can actually print out buy signals or sell signals down here. And finally, this is our price check function, which just allows us to connect to our price updater class. Finally, this code down here just shows you how you can implement your own MACD and RSI trading strategy, which I actually have implemented here. But obviously for this video, we do need to learn how to implement the ROC and the Heikin Ashi candlestick chart to this trading bot. So I'll just go over that now. So once again, we can keep a lot of the same parameters here because in the future, you can actually use all these in combination, which I'll explain later. But for now, we'll just make a new algorithmic trading bot. We can keep the same symbol, which is Bitcoin and USDT pair, and how much money we're going to be using to trade, which is $100. Now after this, we do need a symbol for Heikin Ashi. Like that, and we can either insert yes or no here, and to keep it simple, we can just say Y or N. So obviously for this trading indicator, we do want to use the Heikin Ashi candlestick chart, so you can click yes. Then after that, we can just write out the parameters for the ROC, like this. And the only parameter that we really need to give the ROC is what interval you're going to be using. So for instance, in the article, it actually used 9, so we might as well just use 9 as well within our trading bot here, just like that. And now after we have this is literally all we need to give to our algorithmic trading bot. And once again, we don't actually have to change anything up here. We just need to add in the ROC to this class algorithms here. So first what we want to do is just to make a new function, and we can just call it ROC. And once again, we'll give it the self parameter as well as the closing prices, and then the interval which we'll be giving it. And then once again, we need to create a list of our ROC values just so we can access all of those. And then we can just say for I in range of N and the length of the closing prices, which just basically goes through all the closing prices that we're going to be giving it. Oops. Like that. We can just say current price, which is going to be the current price of whatever asset, is going to be the last value of the closing price. Like that. There we go. And then we also need to calculate the price, which was n intervals ago, which is, we can just call this price n periods ago, and we just say that was the closing prices of I minus n, like that. And now after that, we can then use this to calculate the ROC values. So then we can just say ROC is equal to the current price minus the price n periods ago. And we can take all of that and then divide it by the price n periods ago. Just like that. And then we just multiply this value by 100 so that we can turn this into a percentage. And this is literally all the code that you really need to calculate the ROC. Once again, I mentioned this formula earlier, so if you do want to check that out, you can, but that's just how we can implement that formula into the trading bot like this. And finally, we can just add these ROC values into our list. Dot append ROC, just like that. And finally, we can just return ROC values. So this is literally all the code that you need to calculate the price rate of change all on your own. And once again, I'll show you how this works later when we actually run the code overall. And now that we have ROC, that's half of it done pretty much. So then we need to calculate how we can change the normal candlesticks into the Heikin Ashi candlesticks. So once again, if we say definition of this Heikin Ashi, so this will just be a new function within this algorithms class. Once again, we can give it self and the k lines or the candlesticks. And then we can just say the data is just equal to this list here. And then we can first separate the open value. So open is equal to float of k lines. And it'll be 0 index and then the first index of that 0 index. And the initial HA open value is going to be the first open price that you're going to be getting. So now that you have this, they can just say for k line in k lines. So this will just separate each candle by itself. Then we need to separate it into the different values. So we can say timestamp and then open price, high, low, close, and volume. So these are all going to be values that the Binance client actually gives you whenever you call a candle. So, we actually need this here, zip, and then equals k line. So every single k line or candle that is given to you will have these values. And now that you have that, then you can say open price, high, low, close, volume, and then we can map out these values, map, into float, and then we can just say open price, high, low, close, and volume. So basically what mapping does is just allows us to access these values easier. And now after we have all of that, then we need to calculate or change slightly how the candlesticks will be. So then we can just say the closing price of each Heikin Ashi candle will just be open price plus high and plus low plus close divided by 4. So as I mentioned before, the Heikin Ashi candlestick chart is really just an average of all the different candlesticks, which actually smooths out the volatility of that certain asset, which is super helpful in the crypto market because there's so much volatility within the crypto market. But as you can see here, we're taking all the different open, high, low, and close prices and then dividing it by 4 to get the average. So then after that, then we can say HA data dot append. And really for a lot of the trading bots, you really only need the very last price or the closing price of the candlestick to just measure where the final price is. Say dot append timestamp HA open, it will be max of high or HA close. So this will take either the high or the HA close depending on which is higher, and we also can take the min value of either low or HA close. And then HA close value, and finally the volume, like that. And now finally, we can take the HA open value, and that is actually going to be HA open plus HA close divided by 2, which once again is just the average. And finally, now that you have all of that, then you can finally return the HA data, which is basically how you can calculate the Heikin Ashi candlestick chart. Now keep in mind there are a lot of values in here, such as the volume or timestamp, which you might not necessarily need with the price rate of change. However, in the future, if you want to implement other trading strategies and trading indicators with the Heikin Ashi chart, you can easily do that with all the different values that you're giving it here. Now, after you have all of that, that's pretty much all you really need for the new algorithms. Then we can move on to our check class. Now we can just simply create a new function that will check whether the price rate of change is giving us a buy signal or a sell signal or not a signal. So we can just see price check like that. Once again, we can just give it the self parameter and ROC. And then all we need to say if ROC, the second to last one, is less than 0 and ROC last one is greater than 0, then we can return a buy signal. Now basically what this checks is that if the ROC is crossing from below the 0 to above the 0, which means that the ROC is changing from a negative percentage to a positive percentage, then we can classify that as a bullish signal, and then we can place a buy signal. Otherwise, if we see that the ROC is going from a positive signal, or if -2 is above 0, to a negative signal, which means that the -1 will then become below 0, then we can actually return a sell signal, like that, which is the exact opposite. So now, after you have all this, then one final thing we need to make sure is that if neither of these cases are true, then we can just return none, which means that there is no signal, or the market is already in a bullish or bearish trend. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you might want to check or create different levels for the ROC to cross, because if the ROC is oscillating around 0, that might mean the market is just consolidating, so it's a lot harder to identify signals there. So if you want to change that, you can just create more of these if or elif statements and change how high you want the value to be before you place a buy or sell signal. But I won't be covering that in this video, but that's just something you can do if you wanted to expand on this strategy more yourself. Now we do need to go back to this algobot class and just change some of the different parameters here. We also do need to change the init function a little bit, just because we're adding the Heikin Ashi as a variable that we could be using. So now finally, in our algobots class, after we have all this, we do need to check in the index is greater than or equal to 3, like that, because we're adding another parameter. So after we have all this, then we can say self.heikin is just equal to variables Heikin Ashi. And this variables Heikin Ashi actually relates to our bots dictionary here, which just determines whether we are going to be using Heikin Ashi or not going to be using Heikin Ashi. So then after we have that implemented, now we can actually use this variable and change the candlesticks to the Heikin Ashi candlesticks. Now we just need to create an if statement that checks whether we are using Heikin Ashi or not. So then we can just say self.heikin Ashi is equal to yes or y, or self.heikin is equal to capital Y, just to make sure. Then we can say the K lines or the candles are going to be algos dot Heikin Ashi k lines, which will call this function from the algorithms class and create all of the candlesticks with the Heikin Ashi parameters. So now that we have all of that, then we just need to create another if statement down here that just checks the ROC, or the price rate of change, and whether it's going to be a buy signal or a sell signal. So we can just simply say if ROC in self.checks. So like a lot of these before, we first need to get the parameters and then calculate the signal and the signal like that. So then we can just say params is equal to self.checks.get, and then we can put in ROC here, which will just get the item that's related to the ROC key within the dictionary. And then once again, we can just print this out just to check that we are doing it correctly. We can just print like this, and we can just say ROC is equal to algos.ROC, and then once again we're going to be giving it closing prices and then the params, just like that. So now after we have that, then we can go ahead and get the signal from this. So once again, it will just be signal is equal to check.ROC check. And then once again, we can just give it the values, which will be algos.roc.this. Copy and paste that into here like that. And there you go. That's how you can get the signals from ROC. And now finally, we want to add this in. So self.signals ROC is equal to signal. So there you have it. That's all you need to input, just like that. And once again, this will just take the ROC and then it will give you either a buy or sell signal or none signal. And then it will take all your different signals that you might have from all your different trading indicators and then determine if all of them are buy or all of them are sell. And if either of those is true, then it'll place a buy order and a sell order. And once again, this code will also all be in the description below. So if you want to just get it from my GitHub and copy and paste it, you can do that as well. So now after we have all of that, then this code should be working. So to just first check the code, we can come up here, it's 60 seconds, which is fine because the shortest candlestick amount that you can have from the Binance client is 60 seconds, which is what we have here, or a minute. So after this code is all good to go, then we just click run that, and then if you just give it a second, then it should print out the ROC values that it's getting from the Binance client. And there you go. As you can see here, it oscillates between being negative as well as being positive, which means that this is working. So if you see a lot more negative signs here, then that means that the Bitcoin or USDT pair is actually in a bearish trend right now. And if you want to look at this bottom number right here, which says that ROC is equal to none, which also makes sense because the ROC is not currently giving any values because the last two values are both negative, which means that it hasn't crossed the zero line just yet. And if you want to look closer, you can notice that the ROC is actually decreasing, which means that this could just be more of a bearish trend. And now if we give a whole minute, then it should print once again, and we can just check that one more time. As you can see here, we do have algobot 1, and we do have starts, and then we do have ROC and the values related with that. And there you go. It just printed one more time. So once again, we get all the values from ROC, and then it just prints out none like that. And after this, it should just be stopping. So there you go. That's how you can implement your own ROC and Heikin Ashi trading bot on your own. And you can also look in the description below to check out the other video on how I mentioned how you can set up all this code as well as using the MACD and RSI trading indicators. And basically this is all you have to do. If we want to check everything as well, then we can also add in the MACD and the RSI parameters just to show you how it all works in tandem together. So once again, we can just say MACD, and then we do need to give it the different parameters, which once again will just be a list, and we can just say 12, 26, and 9, which is usually the basic MACD values, and then we can also add in the RSI here, and then we can just say 9 for this, which is also a pretty basic RSI value. So now what this code will actually do is take the ROC and MACD and RSI and check them all three at the same time, and it'll also use the Heikin Ashi candlestick chart to check these values as well. So now if we add those in and then we try running this one more time, let me do that real quick. All right, and then if we try running this one more time, then we do see that the ROC and MACD and RSI all have different values like that, and you can see this up here. So the RSI is currently 47.7, and the ROC once again are all these values here, which is actually oscillating between negative and positive right now. And then finally up here you can see the MACD values, and you can see that they're all returning their own related signals, and if we give it a minute then it will print again. So this is how you can actually expand your own algorithmic trading bot indicators into what you want it to be. And if we give it one more minute, then it just should print one more time. And once again, if you don't want all these values, you can also change the limit up here to be not 1,000, but there's no reason not to, because it's better to have all this data than to not have this data. So there you have it. That's how you can create your own Heikin Ashi and ROC trading bots, which supposedly has a 93% win rate, although I would take that value with a grain of salt. But anyways, thank you for watching. If you're more interested in other trading bots and how you can set those up as well, make sure to check out my channel and hit that subscribe button. But in any case, I'll see you all next time. Happy trading.